This is the Temple Square you may already know. But today, we're taking you behind the scenes.
You'd be amazed how much music goes in and out of this place.
He does belong to the church, and he is, as we like to call, he's the cutest employee in the security department.
Each year, they act differently according to what the weather's doing.
From the Temple Square Sister Missionaries online chats,
Need anything else, please feel free to let me know.
to practicing talks for General Conference,
If I just stand it out here, just
perfect.
with my hands.
Yep.
you'll see what makes Temple Square tick. Hi, I'm Michelle King. I'm here at the Basin Meridian marker at the corner of South Temple and Main Street in Salt Lake City. I've lived here for decades and never even noticed it. Once the pioneers arrived on July 24, 1847, they started drawing plans for Salt Lake. It started from this point, with Temple Square being the city center, and fanned out into a grid system of 10-acre blocks. The temple was at the center of Latter-day Saints' lives, physically and spiritually.
Although it has park-like elements, beautiful flowers, trees, and shrubs which are peaceful and contemplative, it's revealed space, and it was designed as a result of a vision that was given to Brigham Young.
The early saints first built boweries so they could gather and meet on Temple Square.
They were fairly simply constructed, primarily with poles to hold up really kind of a thatchwork ceiling to protect from the shade. It didn't work too well in the wintertime, and it was very cold.
Today, you may recognize the sound of the Nauvoo bell, located where one of those old boweries stood. It's a symbol of religious freedom, and for decades now, that chime is heard at the top of every hour on KSL radio.
I think it's tradition. It's something that our KSL listeners, and long before I worked at KSL, that's what I was, and you just expected it. You wanted to hear the bell.
The old tabernacle replaced the boweries. Then the tabernacle we know today was built. Its rounded dome was a shape supposedly hatched at breakfast when the prophet Brigham Young cut his egg the long way.
Now, that's according to his daughter. I don't know if it's true or not.
Latticework bridge building techniques were used, so no support columns were necessary. That made the tabernacle the largest freestanding dome structure in the country at the time, a place where even mission calls were issued.
During much of the 19th century, these calls came out cold from the podium.
In the tabernacle.
In the tabernacle, hundreds of folks finding out that they are being called to serve a mission.
The tabernacle's acoustics are amazing, but they also present some challenges.
It's very hard sometimes for the choir to hear each other, and sometimes hard for the choir, or difficult for the choir to hear the organ.
In fact, the gallery was added because too much sound bounced around. But it's the sound of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir that has gained worldwide attention. Music and the spoken word began on the radio in 1929, followed by television and eventually satellite broadcasts. You may hear and see it every Sunday morning at 9:30, but the action starts much earlier.
We have every type body, every size from a 2 to a 28. We have everything, and everybody deserves to look wonderful, so we try to find things that will fit them well.
For the women of the choir, it takes a team to keep them looking sharp.
We have 212 closets, and most of the time those are full. And we have 8 outfits in each closet, but we have 13 pieces in each closet.
And periodically, they make new clothes. That's a lot of sewing.
We're going to do a new fuchsia dress. Our old fuchsia dress is 26 years old, and the thread is starting to be destroyed.
Their dry cleaner picks up 50 dresses at a time.
I love it. I love it. I love the women in the choir. I love the choir music. I love the ladies I work with.
Well, we've got over 2,000 pieces of music. Again, times 400, so it's close to 1 million pieces of music we have here. As you can see, the shelves are on, they're rolling stacks so that we can really take advantage of the space.
All the music's categorized, numbered, and barcoded.
We check out the music on a computer program, and then we scan it back in to know who turned it in.
Choir members can sing for 20 years or until age 60, whichever comes first.
And so when they called me back a year later to do the library, I was so happy.
Things are really hopping from warm-ups at 7:25 a.m. until the broadcast is over.
Come on, just use your sensibilities. Be smart about this.
We're internalizing rhythm because it is very hard for the choir to hear each other. So if everybody is tapping the same, then it helps us to unify our precision in our ensemble.
3 minutes.
We're only about 10 days ahead on most, certainly on our Sunday morning programs, and we only rehearse once a week for 2.5 hours on Thursday evening. It's a great tribute to the abilities and talents of everyone who participate both in the choir and the orchestra.
Choir members are arranged by height, and Mac Wilberg arranges many of the pieces they perform.
I'm old-fashioned. I still do it all with pencil and paper. I just can't do it any other way. Putting together a program from Sunday to Sunday is not as easy as one may think. You have to have something that has contrast, but yet is unified, and then also comes within the time parameters that we're given.
That's where the producers come in.
Lloyd. Camera 6, shot 1, which bomb dissolves.
Producers pre-time the rehearsals and are in constant communication with Mac so they can make sure the live show doesn't go long or short.
And so we're constantly giving him feedback so he knows he's 10 or 20 seconds short so he can slow down. If we've got big chunks of time that we have to make up for, we'll actually put an organ pad in of 15 or 20 seconds. It usually works out really well.
The choir is first and foremost an ambassador for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Everything that we do keeps this in mind because we have to represent the ideals and the standards for which the church is known. To watch the Lord's hands unfold in the work of the choir, to see hearts touched, it's all an enormous blessing.
And we can't forget what's behind the powerful tabernacle organ with its more than 11,000 pipes of all sizes.
I think anybody would tell you it's just a tremendous feeling of power over this massive beast.
And what's it like to play it?
Glorious and humbling and mind-blowing.
Nearby, the assembly hall was built where the old tabernacle once stood, first used by the Salt Lake Stake and its 37 wards.
I think one thing that is really interesting about the assembly hall is that initially the ceiling was covered with frescoes, paintings. These paintings depicted scenes from church history, church leaders. So in some ways, the assembly hall is sort of the Sistine Chapel of Mormonism for a time.
One of those frescoes was a picture of the Salt Lake Temple, painted before the building was even finished. But in fact, the work to build the temple started with the wall.
And that wall is so important because it divided the sacred space from the profane.
When you step onto Temple Square, you feel a real difference.
That's intentional, and it's preparatory for moving into the sacred space, into the temple.
The Salt Lake Temple was dedicated in 1893, 40 years after work began, the crowning jewel of Temple Square.
If you look at the temple, if you will, its architecture as a microcosm, and we are here, all mortals standing on earth. We go to the temple so that we can get our bearings in the universe. We can find the Lord at that place.
Still to come, one of the best noses on Temple Square when it comes to sniffing out trouble.
So he has that ability to detect that explosive odor on a moving target, essentially.
Meet Chevy, the church security dog, when we come back.
We were looking at several dogs. We actually got to test 10 dogs with this company. And Chevy just kind of took to us immediately.
Chevy is church security's secret weapon. He arrived at headquarters in January 2016 and has been sniffing his way around ever since as an explosive detection dog.
Looking for anything that has an explosive odor to it.
Chevy is trained constantly.
Any place that you could think that a bomb could be hidden, or either on a person or in a static search, we're looking for and we train him.
Chevy is a black lab, a sporting breed with a personality perfect for the job.
They just have the drives and the traits that we look for in a detector dog, and they've got that energy level, that hunt drive that we look for.
Chevy is great working in crowds, and people seem to love him.
Does he ever want to go jump in a fountain here?
That's almost happened twice, yes. He's seen the reflection pond, and like any good bird dog, he wants to jump in and go look for the birds, but we've been able to stop him from doing that, so. Yes, he does come home with me, so he is part of the family. Kind of an obnoxious part of the family, but he is part of the family.
Chevy does a great job prepping for large events in the conference center and elsewhere. So did the director's cast and crew.
Okay, that's a little bit better. Is there a way do you want it like get it taped?
Like I said, I think when we do the show, we'll have Joey.
Year-round, big-name artists and special guests come here to perform in this monstrous building that seats 21,000 people in the main hall alone. Rolando Villazon performed in the 2016 Christmas concert, dazzled by the Tabernacle Choir.
I mean, worldwide famous, and so this is just a new adventure and a wonderful opportunity to be here and to share a great moment of performing for people.
And amazing things even happen from the rafters in this auditorium. It's the biggest of its kind in the world.
Christmas, now, here, in the present, good spirit, I see.
And so it's a collaborative effort between the choir and some of our other creative talents that we have. But we're always thinking of some way to make the next show better.
But the main purpose for this building is in its name, General Conference. The crowds outgrew the tabernacle, so President Gordon B. Hinckley proposed the conference center be built. Of course, General Conference, held twice a year in this building, has auxiliary heads, general authorities, and even church florists in preparation mode long before.
It looks like springtime watering the lawn.
Sound is checked and camera shots blocked and set by the broadcast crew.
I'm never quite sure whether to wait till the song's all over or when.
We'll give
so
you,
that's
the stand-up light will go up and you're
perfect.
The women auxiliary leaders want to get it just right.
If I just stand it out here, just
perfect.
with my hands
Yep.
here so I'm not.
Yep.
Believe me, reading the teleprompter takes practice.
More beautiful and profound than the pure and simple truths of the gospel taught in a primary song?
You need to talk a little louder.
Okay.
What a privilege and joy to be a part of this marvelous assembly of girls and women.
Yep, that's great.
Thank you.
So much goes into making what you see on television, online, or in person picture perfect. Coming up, something people never see. We'll show you that and this.
It is something that we didn't see, we didn't know about, and most people don't. So when we talk about that to people, they're amazed. We call it the other half of what happens on Temple Square.
Temple Square sees millions of visitors every year, and there's an army of young sister missionaries ready to help them out.
Right now, 35 languages and sisters from 49 different countries and 26 U.S. states.
Hi, I'm Sister Cabello from Mexico. I'm Sister Enzo and I'm from South Africa.
My name is Sister Hook and I'm from Basel, Switzerland.
Well, not only are we training dynamic teachers of the gospel, we're training mothers. He is so kind and so gentle with them, and it has been just a joy to watch, really.
This mission is different than all the others.
All of the missionaries are sister missionaries except for 4 senior couples.
Well, what's it like dealing with all sisters all the time?
It's wonderful. The sisters are amazing leaders and amazing teachers. There's a lot of emotion.
President Risen May is in charge of the missionaries and the visitor centers. Sisters are also assigned to the Tabernacle and Assembly Hall, Humanitarian Center, Welfare Square, and Legacy Theater.
The sisters find that there is an intensity of work here that is far more than in any other mission because they're scheduled all the time. There's a place where they're to be.
There are usually 150 sisters on the square, with new ones arriving every 6 weeks. And Temple Square sisters also serve outbound for a few months in other U.S. missions. That gives them the chance to work with wards and stakes and take that knowledge back to their homeland.
And as we read it and as you meet with those missionaries.
One of the places the outside world never sees is the Teaching Center on Temple Square.
I wanted to share with you my favorite scripture from the Book of Mormon. Is that okay?
This center gives the sisters the chance to teach the gospel far beyond these doors. They have several hundred new investigators every week from all over the world.
And so they pray with them when they begin and end a lesson, just like they would if they were in front of them.
The goal is to eventually turn their investigators over to the local missionaries.
I want you to think about what would change if you started like going to church and praying.
There are lots of baptisms as a result of what's taught here on Temple Square, but the sisters don't always get to see them.
We teach the missionaries that you have to have the faith not to see the miracle.
All this hard work requires lots of study and nourishment. Just look at these refrigerators.
Food is important, and they love it, and they eat a lot. So we love it. They are so beloved to us. I mean, they are truly like our daughters. But when you love them, it just comes back 100-fold.
And so it's just the most miraculous thing we've ever been involved in all of our service in the church.
These sister missionaries are all part of the church's Relief Society, the women's organization headquartered in a building just across the street. But it wasn't always that way. That is, until Belle Spafford came along.
She was on the Relief Society Journal Board, and she was editing the Relief Society magazine. And she was doing this in the Bishop's building because that's where Relief Society was headquartered, and she could not hear herself think. They were so crowded. And here she is trying to edit a magazine and make sure it's error-free, and it's just noisy, noisy, noisy.
The Relief Society wanted its own space, but was turned down.
She went to the president of the church and she said, if we raise half of the money, $500,000, will you give us the land and pay the other half? And they said yes. And they asked every Relief Society woman who was not in a country that was really devastated by World War II to donate $5. Back then, $5 was about $45 in what we have to spend now, and for a lot of people that's a stretch.
Especially for people like my Granny Milne. On LDS.org, you can actually see who donated to help fund the Relief Society building. I was really touched to find her name there.
So women came up with all kinds of creative ways to raise this $5 per person.
All the stakes in the church managed to fill their quotas, and the building was dedicated in 1956.
They were producing a magazine, they were sewing temple clothing, they were producing their own curriculum, and that was all happening by the Relief Society, and that all happened in this building once they moved into this building.
Not only does it now house the Relief Society, Young Women, and Primary Presidencies, the main floor is open to the public to browse the portraits and artifacts, and it's symbolically meaningful.
This was a place for women to do women's work in the church, women's particular way of building the kingdom.
If you want a tour, no worries. There are 950 part-time church service hosting missionaries on Temple Square.
We not only serve in the Joseph Smith Memorial Building, but we serve at the Conference Center, the Church Office Building, and the Relief Society Building.
The Joseph Smith Memorial Building was first the exquisite Hotel Utah, built over 100 years ago. The change was made in 1993, and now it houses church offices, Legacy Theater, the Family History Center, and is home to many restaurants and special events.
So we are here as friendship ambassadors for the church to meet and greet visitors from all over the world who come to Temple Square. Many for their very first time. We could be the first face of the church that these visitors may encounter.
These volunteers each serve at least 8 hours per week.
And I find out that people are all basically the same all over the world.
And a lot of times they feel something different while they're here, feelings that they're not quite used to.
And the spirit that is here at the Joseph Smith Building, it's tangible.
As members of the church, we give that message as we host on Temple Square with our warm welcomes and friendly hellos.
When we come back, 2 more locations the public will never see. It's like a mini United Nations here. 700 volunteers work to get church leaders' messages out to the world in 95 languages. Interpreters work every general conference and for special events like this First Presidency Christmas devotional. The majority of the volunteers are natives and sometimes return missionaries when it comes to more rare languages. K.O. Brown speaks Laotian.
It's the spirit. It's the spirit when you are here.
Once the English version of the talk is sent to them prior to the event, it's translated. When the volunteers read that translated script to listeners worldwide, it's called interpretation. And accuracy is everything, even when speakers insert something new.
And our interpreters needs to be able to catch that and interpret simultaneously right at the spot at that moment. Tonight I interpret prayer, so that's what happens for all the prayers.
Somehow, when they hear in their own language, it sinks inside not only their head, it goes right into their heart.
If they feel the Spirit and if they understand the message and they're edified, that's what we know that was a successful interpretation.
Nearby is the Beehive House, which housed Brigham Young's family, plus visiting guests and a number of different offices. Today, the buildings around the Beehive House fill all those needs in a much bigger way. Everyone loves the gorgeous flowers that adorn the 35 acres in and around Temple Square year-round, but this is the place where it all starts.
The busiest time is generally in the spring, and it starts in February. We're in the process of filling flats with soil, getting ready to put the seeds and the transplants in the ground.
Normally just put our little hole in with our dibble, then our little plugs, started plants, we'll put one in each one of those.
And then the best time, my favorite time on Temple Square, is when the tulips and the daffodils and the crocus all begin blooming in the spring.
The church's floral group uses those flowers in arrangements for conferences and special occasions.
And the pansies that you see around us usually will go in the fall and in the spring.
And with pansies, you can throw them out in the cold and they'll freeze down real good and they'll still come back up.
One of the principal things that we do is take care of the gardens, but we also have other responsibilities, which involves making sure that Christmas is taken care of. We do go from our regular plantings that go out into the outdoor gardens into Christmas poinsettias.
Hundreds upon hundreds of them. And yes, you heard him right.
Poinsettia, that is correct.
They also put up millions of lights on Temple Square. Crews start wrapping the trees in August.
And so by the time that Thanksgiving is here, Friday after Thanksgiving, we do all the lighting. What a wonderful opportunity that is for families to come to Temple Square and see what's going on.
5 months after Christmas goes up, it all starts coming down the first Monday after New Year's. Extra hands are often welcome.
Anytime you'd like to come and volunteer, come on down. We'll take you and various volunteers. We also have about 1,000 volunteers on Saturdays in May and October, and we couldn't do the work that we do in the gardens without it. It's the beauty of the earth that we have the opportunity to work with, and it's such a neat thing to do.
Temple Square, history, beauty, missionary work, inspiration, peace, outreach to the world and inviting the world in, world-renowned music, revealed sacred space, truly a sight to see.